Welcome to another exciting Whites podcast episode. I'm David.
And I'm Kaylin.
And we talk about white wine and everything else that's on the table. How are you?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm pretty good.
Yeah.
It is nice here in our state of Michigan today.
It's like 60 degrees.
Which is unnatural.
In February.
For
in
winter.
Michigan.
That's right.
Whoa.
Our engineer and producer, KB over there. How you doing, Kevin?
I'm doing wonderful. It's sunny out. I love it.
Yeah. So, what are we drinking today, Kaylin?
Today, I'm going to tell you right now that I didn't know anything about this wine before I picked it out. But I went to the store and I admired the bottle, and it just looks like some 1920s.
It does have that feel to that glass.
Yeah, it was pretty, and it glistened.
Art Deco glass.
Yes, Art Deco glass, like
Yeah.
that 1920s Art Deco vibe, and I love an Art Deco vibe. So here it is. It is a Freixenet. I had to look up how to pronounce that as well because I am not
spelled,
so
right?
educated, I guess.
It's spelled
Freixenet.
Yeah. And
Freixenet.
and this is a Pinot Grigio.
Yes. It is a 2021 vintage Garda Doc.
I see that.
This Pinot Grigio is an excellent white wine from the picturesque vineyards of the Garda region. It has a floral and delicate fruity character with subtle hints of crisp citrus.
Delicious.
Enjoy it chilled for an aperitivo or paired with seafood, vegetarian dishes, fried fish, or sushi. I feel like all of that is, fried fish and sushi is seafood.
It just falls under that. Specifically
do they mean
because fried could be
because
hot.
like octopus and like.
Well, no, I mean, I
calamari?
think seafood fried is a totally different type of experience than eating more raw seafood, like a raw bar, or even having it scampied in a different way, right?
For sure. I enjoy seafood. I'm a pescatarian. So apparently I was drawn to this bottle not only from the Art Deco, but also for the pescatarian in me.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, let's give it a sip. Say it one more time.
The Freixenet
Freixenet Pinot Grigio.
Pinot Grigio, 11.5% ABV.
Which, by the time the show is over, we'll be representing on our faces and visage.
Delish.
All right, so jumping in, for everyone out there who likes telescopes and space and is interested in things outside of our sphere here, and for those who believe the earth is flat and grapes grow upon it, that's fine, I guess, but we're not here to debate that. I'm just saying it for everyone to be included.
Yeah.
So all of that being said, we're going to jump in and talk about one of the topics that you feel, I won't say passionate about.
I don't feel passionate about it.
You do.
I feel a few ways about it.
Well, that's what I mean. You get passionate when discussing it. At least even in this few moments since you brought the topic up and I've talked to you about it.
Sure.
You get real excited about this topic.
Yes.
And so specifically, just to give a quick back update, and Kevin will drop an image of it so everyone can see when it airs here. But at any rate,
Yeah.
there was a picture that was assembled basically mosaic styled from thousands upon thousands of other pictures of the moon.
Like 50,000 pictures of
so-
the moon. This
so-
16-year-old kid took separate pictures, pieced them all together.
And we'll link the article to its USA
Yeah.
Today article. It shows the image. One of the things about the moon images that it shows in detail that I really haven't seen many times before, and our topic for discussion today, is the fact that there are colorations on the moon that you can see in these photographs, and there are what NASA is calling iron deposits and metals that are akin to the oxidization of metals and rust. In short, on the surface of the moon.
The moon is rusting.
Basically, we're seeing the oxidization of metals, and so it's iron and feldspar on the moon that are oxidizing or have oxidized. And so to do that, you need air and water to have those things happen.
The presence of hematite is what is described by NASA.
And so if that's true and that's happening, that means that there is a lot more to our moon than I think that at first glance tells us. Like you would see those colors on the moon, and most people would pass by and just go, "Well, yeah, that's cool. Looks like a planet, or looks like something." But to the person who I think looks a little deeper at something like this, we've always been told that the moon was just this rock that had either come in contact with the Earth previously in a prehistoric time, or had cataclysmically collided with another rock or planet out in the solar system and then been sucked gravitationally between the sun and the Earth.
Or was a part of the Earth and something hit the Earth and that got blown off, and so it should be made of the same properties as the Earth is.
But it isn't, right? Is that correct?
I don't know. I feel like they got samples from the moon, and everything from the moon is found on the Earth.
I understand there's a theory about that. That's like a gravitational spin theory, wherein the Earth had turned a bunch of times and the moon had come from inside it and had flown off, like as the Earth had started its new gravitational life, that this chunk of whatever, either came from inside the sea and flew off as a gravitational pull in some way, or was not fully connected and got caught.
Except for the conspiracy theory or ancient myth that the moon wasn't always a part of our system, our immediate solar system or Earth system. Which then brought to me, because the reason I wanted to talk about this was because I saw a religious video that was trying to put the fear of God into people, saying, there's this prophecy in the biblical book of Joel saying that before the Lord comes again, the moon will turn to blood
red. Yeah, all right.
But the word that was used was a Greek word, which is related to hematite. It's
what is
the same. I forget what the word is. I have to look it up. I'll put it in the description below. We'll link that. But anyway, the same word.
The moon of Endor has Ewoks on it, and they are fuzzy and cute. Now, if we find out,
they are fuzzy and cute.
I'm just going to bring up one theory that goes along with that: is the fact that the moon has rumored to be, based on some of the Apollo missions and the Chapel Bell experiments, to potentially be hollow.
Hollow and made of metal, which is now rusting. And there's many myths from the beginning of time where the moon did not exist.
Or not beginning of time.
So is the moon a spaceship?
Yes. Okay. So, jeez. Not to go full coast to coast on this. No,
that's why I was like, my first thought wasn't like, Jesus is coming. It was like, the moon is a spaceship, and here's proof.
Okay, let's digest this for a second. Like logical wine drinkers, let's look at it from quite literally a 10,000-foot view.
Yeah.
If the moon has in itself a history wherein we can track that there is some documentation that the moon didn't exist in the sky, meaning that the night was filled with just the twinkling of stars.
As it is in biblical Genesis.
Okay, well, so lots of references to the biblical stuff. I feel like you've been watching a lot of AA, what I refer to as AA for conspiracy theorists, which is Ancient Aliens. I feel like you might have been... You've been digging into a little bit of...
This wasn't from that. This was a random thing that came... I watch a lot of Ancient Aliens, but this was not from that. This was probably marketed to me because of my love for Ancient Aliens and NASA.
If we had definitive proof in some type of cave drawing, hieroglyph, Dead Sea Scroll, crypt with a book... It says, listen, we hid this from the church, that the fact that the moon appeared one day in the sky and shone bright, and from that came all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Would it be so impossible to cover it up? I don't know. We know there's a cataclysmic flood event. We know that's real. There's evidence to suggest it all over the world. That, I think we can, and I think science agrees that such a thing happened. But if the flood event coincides with the appearance of an object that upsets the gravitational pull
You'd think
between
there'd be
our relationship
documentation
and the
of that.
sun. Oh, yeah, well, I mean, there is, right? I mean, if you, I hate to, I'm not doing this, and I think we're not citing the Bible from a religious aspect, but more of a historical aspect
Sure.
here, because I don't think we're religious experts, but it's the one that we know the most, being in the Midwest. So,
yes.
as we were told, I think in a church they skip over a lot of this stuff because it represents a lot of the unknown. A pastor doesn't want to talk about the younger dries. Probably because he just wants to keep kids off drugs or whatever, whatever it is that they're about. But the point is, biblically, if there is an event that could tie that as a documented history, because the scientific method is to observe and then document, change. And so if there was something that said the moon appeared, I would give more credence to that. Anyway, the idea then that the moon is rusting or oxidizing in some way means that also the chapel belt, it's hollow, could mean that it is a sphere that is got something inside it, and it has like a crust around it, maybe from being where it's been for a while or whatever, and spinning inside Earth's gravity. That what we're seeing is eventually erosion of the rock surface, and the metal has started to rust, not from the outside in. You guys ever been to a water park, right?
Yeah.
When you're climbing up the stairs to go on one of the slides, the
It looks
awful climbing the
rusty and
stairs.
crusty, and it looks
And
terrible,
the
like
water
you're going to
drips down
die.
from other people's feet onto your... Oh, I hate that so much. So sick.
I
Like
walk on my tiptoes because I have a fear of getting like warts
you don't want to get
from
warts
the
from the...
water that just sits there. And
We do, while there is a certain stigma with water parks as far as the type of people that visit them, you and I do enjoy a water park.
I love a water
almost
park.
exclusively for a lazy river.
I love a lazy river.
And if we've had enough wine, we have been known to climb the steps of doom for a water slide. It's a rare occasion, though, I'll say.
Yeah.
When we do such a thing, we're going up. You can see there's piping underneath, and if the water park isn't brand spanking new, you'll see that rust has appeared along pipes. A lot of that rust is actually not coming from the exterior. It's rusting from the inside out. And what's happened is the water is traveling through, and it's eventually pitted and rusted, patinaed that inside of that pipe. As the pipe sweats, it then rusts from both sides, and it works from the inside out. Is it possible the moon is hollow?
Yes.
And what we're seeing is internal moisture and oxygen working to oxidize the internal components of the moon in some way, meaning that would suggest that some type of ecosystem is inside the moon. Yeah, that's some real coast-to-coast stuff. But that's not really... I mean, I don't know if it's really important because there's nothing we can do about it right now to our daily lives. So this is probably why we don't talk about this all the time. Like if the moon is rusting and possibly is a starship from another galaxy, it's not feeding all the hungry people, or it's not rebuilding homes from a fire in Maui. I get why a story like this is not on the front page of everybody's mind. But if the moon was rusting and then a hole appeared and gas came out of it, and then they went inside and explored it, and there was a whole componentry and ships and stuff inside, and there was sleeping quarters and hyper sleep chambers and all of this crazy tech or whatever, let's say, and bodies maybe in there, and they're humanoid like us. Do you think the government is going to tell us about that? Or do you think that's going to be kept under wraps?
Supposedly, with anything else that's happened regarding UAPs or whatever, the government keeps that under wraps. There'd be no way that they would.
But they've been releasing information from 2016 and before of ships, right?
Right, but it's all so vague.
UAPs.
Well, they've admitted to it now.
Right, but it's vague. And
That's a good
they'll
point.
admit to UAPs just means that it's unidentified. They don't know where it came from. It doesn't mean it's from outer space.
I mean, technically, a government official in a committee said that they got, non-human biologics or whatever he said.
But what does that
They
mean?
use a term, non-human biological
like
samples.
algae from space?
It could be.
Yeah, it just means a life form.
But it
not
also
from
could be
here.
a life
It's
form.
vague.
It is biological is the important word there, because biological is living.
Mm-hmm.
Is algae considered living?
Sure,
Yeah.
certainly.
So
It's foliage. Yeah.
So that's not a humanoid.
Doesn't matter. It's super
Creature.
exciting that there's life that's not from here.
It doesn't matter as long as. So extraterrestrial doesn't have to be little green men coming out of a saucer. It can also mean anything that's found outside of our planet
Sure.
that's alive.
Yeah.
So if the moon is oxidizing, some people argue, well, it might have always been that way. But one thing I also noticed in these pictures, and you probably did too when you looked at them, is there's
blue.
impact craters. I mean, tons of them. And I just started to look at a comparison. I'm going to send you these images. I want you to throw them up on the screen for me. It is what I compared the surface of those images of the moon to ballistics of a bullet being shot into a piece of metal, like a panel. Specifically, a 4-inch thick armored car. And the ballistics of the shot dome and the strike, and then the way that the metal buckled around the bullet looks strikingly a lot and very similar to how these pits look on the surface of the moon. They actually look like
So it's an
ballistic
escape pod.
Look,
It's an escape pod. The moon is an escape pod.
I mean, if we're on
rest my
Alderaan, we're
case.
doomed then. I'm just saying. If it's escape pod from what? Maybe it
Mars.
escaped to here. This is getting deeper in our conspiracy theories really than ever before. But it's a very cool image. I urge everyone to go take a look at it. It suggests questions, none of which are the ones that we're discussing really. We're I think, taking the tangent as far as you can take it, because that's what we do. But I'm just saying, if we did find out that the moon was hollow and that people were in it or something was in it, I don't think that we're going to find that information out. I just don't. I don't think that our governments are going to give us access to that kind of knowledge base. Because what does that do? If aliens are real,
Then it makes us all unify and come together, and so then we can't fight each other over just like these minuscule things like oil or like religion or like various
Star Trek
things.
First Contact.
Yeah, like maybe here's my conspiracy theory. I'm putting on my
what do you mean?
tinfoil hat.
We've had several. This whole discussion's been a conspiracy.
Well, of course it has, but this
Been
is
a little
this
bit of
is
science
my
with a lot of
specific
conjecture.
Conspiracy theory where I'm putting
Welcome
on
to
my
the
tinfoil
Exciting
hat.
Life podcast.
Right.
What if they don't want us to know because they want to establish one country first, and in order to do that, you have to like take over the other countries.
Kind of like what the U.S. is doing with crypto.
Yes, kind of like that. But what if the aliens are inside the moon, just
boy.
hanging out, waiting for us to stop fighting, and then they'll be like, "Okay, you guys can become part of our federation now that you're not killing each other over like oil."
Like the Vulcans did in Star Trek First Contact.
Yeah.
Okay, hear me out for a second. Have you considered
No,
anything at all?
I have not.
What's your quick thought on this?
Oh.
Mid bottle, we are halfway through our first glass and a half. I, honestly, it's quite light and refreshing. I could see it totally with seafood. I would
Yeah.
enjoy this. Really?
I would enjoy this with food.
Did you just say blah?
I said, yeah.
Oh,
Not blah.
Didn't it sound like she made a nasty noise,
Blah. It could be because the wine was sticking to my throat, like.
like cloying you? Is that how you would describe it?
No, I wouldn't describe it as
Describe
cloying.
it.
I would describe it as like semi-dry for a Pinot Grigio. I feel like the other Pinot Grigios that I have experienced in my life have been sweeter. However, this bottle was a little less bargain priced than
Some of the previous reviews we've
Pinot
done.
Grigios.
We give everybody a shot.
Yeah, I like to try a wide
get something
assortment.
expensive
This
one day.
seems like a good dinner wine. It doesn't seem
That's
like
what
a
it seems
dessert
like.
wine. It
No.
doesn't seem like I described it was could be a good aperitivo or for seafood. And I do enjoy seafood. It's pretty much all I eat.
I think this paired with seafood would be fantastic.
Yeah.
And even and
Sush.
honestly, like a thin steak, like a New York strip, I think it would be fantastic with that as well. So
Although supposedly you're supposed to drink red wine with
I
red
understand
meats.
that. But this is the Exciting
Red,
Whites
red,
podcast.
red. Are you so excited about that? I was really excited about this bottle just because
I will
of
say
the
it
appearance
is a
of
nice
it.
appearance.
It is beautiful. I want to keep it.
But there is something of a purist in me that sometimes feels like I'm being led down the garden path by Trixie marketing and bottles.
Trixie.
You know, like there's obviously, and it works because like when I chose the beach glass, you know, I chose that because I thought it looked clear and it was a nice looking presentation. You know,
I did actually see that when I went to search for this.
You did see it.
And it was not the price that you purchased it for.
So it was much more, was it?
Yeah, it was much more.
okay, that's good. That's good to know. So we should probably divulge retail pricing and maybe keep what we pay for them secret. Although I guess it doesn't matter.
It doesn't really matter.
It's just
Find
based on
the
popularity.
wine and make your choice
Yeah,
yourself.
I should put this as an asterisk in the show and just say as a caveat that just because we receive or got a bottle or got a deal on a bottle does not diminish its value in the wine community whatsoever, because we are by no means experts.
No.
We are drinkers and enjoyers and purveyors, but for all that,
Like
the
reading
point-
Rainbow. Don't take my word for it.
try it for yourself. But also, we just want to say that just because we pay for something doesn't diminish its value. You know, sometimes wines sit on shelf for whatever reasons, and the price goes down just because these retailers need to move volume. So
Yeah.
that's it. Just caveat over.
Anyway, you like this Freixenet?
I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's
Honestly,
nice.
as a Pinot, I could drink this all day. It's probably one of my favorites that I've had this year so far, and I've had a couple.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like it a lot. When is old?
Oh. Or how old is old?
Well, when
Or when have you reached old?
When is old? Like, so I used to have this limit on playing music live. I thought if I haven't made it as a career musician, meaning like I was making a living at it and touring and was known, that I was going to quit when I was 25.
Whoa.
And we all know how that turned out. But
Yeah.
25 in my teens and junior high years seemed old enough to have had my, shit together. And for lack of a better term, that would have been my cutoff. And then I was going to then, if not by 25, have it turn myself into towards a career so that I wouldn't be living in abject poverty my whole life, as a musician is wont to do.
Sure.
So the question is, when is old finally? Like, when is an old man an old man? And when do you or do we feel like we move old as sort of we move the goalposts
For
as
sure.
we age because we don't want to feel old or we still feel capable?
For example, I buy a banana and 3 weeks later it is soft and black. That is an old
It's a
banana.
weird direction.
I'm just saying that old
'Cause
is a
it's definitive.
relative term.
So you're using a physical appearance as the
Yeah, once you
qualifier for
become
age.
pitted and discolored and mushy and just, I guess, a disintegrating version of what you once were, then you're old.
But you're judging that with your eyes, right? Is that what you're saying?
Not necessarily. You can do it with touch. Like I said, a mushy banana, you can feel, you can smell the difference. It's a much different smell.
Let me
A
play
ripe
devil's-
banana or a very fresh banana that's just green. I like a really kind of tart green into yellow banana.
Oh,
That's when I really
gross.
like to eat them. Yeah. Or like I'll make banana pancakes and I'll make them with the green bananas and the starchiness of
If
them
I didn't
just
know you
gives them
didn't,
like
I would think that you might be having a stroke or something. Eating like that.
no, they're delicious.
When I smell burning hair, nothing quills that better than just
So,
an unripened green banana.
Not totally green. It's got to have some yellow in it,
Well,
but
I'm
that
having an
starchy
aneurysm.
texture.
Starchy texture.
And flavor, that tartness. Oh, it's
But you're
it's
eating
lovely.
plantains, not regular.
No.
Chiquitas,
These
right?
are regular bananas.
Oh, all right.
The plantains, you need to wait until they're black before you
Yeah.
can eat them. I've seen white people eating them while they're not ready.
White people.
White people will try and do plantains. They'll be like, I bought these plantains. Let's eat them. I'm like, those are hard. You can't eat that.
Just to clear any misnomers up.
White peoples.
She is 25% Puerto Rican, making her Puerto Rican.
I'm Puerto Rican.
And then it gives her the
White
apparently
people.
the wand to paint white people with a
White
brush,
people.
while also being self-exclusive. So
Yeah, while also eating bananas raw.
I love to eat raw bananas.
there's something completely off about that. Okay, so that
Everybody eats raw bananas.
Could-
You
let me-
cook your bananas?
well, you can cook.
I cook
plantains.
my
but you wait till they're like the
plantains.
correct
So-
ripeness.
I cook my plantains. But anyway, for instance, there's a difference between that and a mushy banana, but they're all useful.
Let me offer a wrench in your works here. So I knew this guy. He raced radio control cars with me, And he had the face and the weathered appearance of a man possibly in his 60s,
He
maybe
looking like
older.
a man.
He worked outside in concrete. And he was outside long hours, and he didn't wear sunblock, and he was 25.
Whoa.
And he was physically fit from doing this work. He had a clean bill of health. He didn't smoke. He didn't drink. But his face looked like those old apples that you can get at like those like knick-knack stores that are like a rotten apple, and they make it look like a grandma. That's what his face looked like. He was 25.
So like
He
a
looked
British
hit.
person would be like, old man.
Well, it's just the thing is, like, people thought he didn't get carded anywhere he went. I never saw him get
Wow.
carded in a store for alcohol because he had the appearance of being a much older man. Now, he was legal to drink, of course, but the point is that otherwise, besides his wrinkled visage, he had the health and vitality of a 25-year-old person. And the point is, so you're judging a banana based on that, but what if you open the banana and there's a delicious fruit inside?
No, because I'm judging it based on the texture
Yeah,
as
I
well.
know, but
if
let's
you
say
grab
he-
the banana and it's mush in your hand, you
He
know
was
that
in
that's an
particularly
old
great
banana.
shape as far as like muscular though.
Oh, I thought you said he was fit.
beer. Well, he had kind of like a beer belly, but he wasn't like. So he wasn't like super
Okay,
muscular,
but a
he was.
25-year-old skin is taut compared to like
But
a
not if you stand in the sun all
65-year-old
day.
skin.
And this guy's wasn't like he had like the like liver spots and stuff, and like he had a lot going on in his skin. Like I even think he had melanoma and had cancer removed.
Oh,
But the point I'm trying to make here is that he
sad.
wasn't in bad health.
except for the melanoma.
And he might have been kind of squishy in certain spots, like a banana, and he certainly looked like an old one. So
Okay, but there's a definite difference between an 80-year-old man's crepey skin and a 25-year-old man's,
sure.
melasma skin because of the sun.
ooh, melasma.
I'm just saying.
I'm just saying too.
There's a difference in the texture. Like, yes, you can go in a tanning bed and make your skin
Awful,
spotted
yeah.
and wrinkly and whatever, but the texture of it itself, your skin gets crepey and it loses elasticity when you lose collagen with age. You don't lose all the collagen just because you go out in the sun. You still have some elasticity to your skin. So,
Okay, so what's the
age
question-
will
the
take
question is,
away
though,
that
When is old
collagen.
old?
But when is
When
old?
old? When
No,
I was a child, I thought 25 was old, and I said
same.
I would be married before I was 26, or I was going to be an old maid, and that probably because that was instilled into me because I live in the Midwest. Like, you should be married by then, or there's something wrong with you. You're damaged goods.
I used to think a woman so I would go on dates with older girls when I was in my 20s, and a girl that was like 28, and I got to say, more often than not, they were the ones that drank a lot more and exhibited a lot more sad characteristics because maybe there was something wrong and they hadn't been claimed yet. Obviously that way of thinking is archaic in today's meta, and this was a long time ago. But
Yeah.
But I did find it to be somewhat true. Like if a woman had set something like you said, married by 25 and they're 28 and it just hasn't come to fruition and they have to deal with what really is just a terrible dating scene, and it's been that way since the invention of the internet, and we talk about that in another episode too. But we have these stigmas, right? So you wanted to be married by then. So then this woman's disappointed.
Right.
So she's already got like a chip on her shoulder before I even met her. And of course, I'm
Right.
younger.
Yeah.
They feel like they should be more accomplished.
I mean, there's still that going on though too, like the red pill stuff,
Yeah.
and then there's there was this like red pill girl, like Pearl, I think like just pearly things or whatever, that got in this huge thing because she was saying that a 16-year-old girl is more attractive than a 26-year-old girl. And everyone was like, a 16-year-old girl is a minor. But she did put into words the fact that people value youth. Like, they value
I see what you're
young
saying.
appearance. They value young, I guess, unjaded personalities. They, value somebody who's probably, honestly, like, easily manipulated.
Well, there's an innocence. You know what? I'm not saying that I understand it from a sexual standpoint.
Right.
But what I can understand is this, and I can relate to it in this way. So if I have a car, that I drive around, and people think it's a nice car. And then I park it somewhere, and
blue.
somebody around that age will come over and stare at the car and take pictures of it and ask me about it and talk about it in an awestruck way that somebody who may be 10 years older wouldn't.
Yeah, because
And so
they're
there's
jaded.
an innocent. It's not innocent so much as it is just still. There hasn't been a moment where they've had a negative with something enough to look at something nice with a negative slant. You know, they haven't had that bad moment in their life, so
Yeah.
there's an innocence to their
They're
interactions.
still
They're still
young.
allowed to be wowed by things
Yeah.
because they haven't seen it all.
Well,
yet.
I think they're still at a point where they think that that's not outside of their grasp. Like,
But I'm
they're
not-
young, and in the future, it's possible that they could have that. But
Right.
somebody 20 years older than that, who's established in a job, who doesn't see themselves moving forward in any sort of way. Like, there are people that get just stuck in a 9 to 5,
For
or
sure.
stuck in a career that isn't moving, or whatever.
there's a
or
lot of people in
or they
that.
get stuck with, a bunch of kids and whatever. They decide that they need to focus on that instead of focusing on their dreams and branching out and doing something risky.
yeah,
And so,
like becoming a clown at the mall.
yeah, like you want to be a clown at the mall
Like
sometimes.
balloon animals. How much do you think you make an hour? You sell like $10. $10 for a balloon animal. You think,
$10?
think like a parent would go for it? Or
Are they really
$5?
$10?
Like $5, let's say.
I buy a
make a
balloon,
balloon
for
In the
$5.
right setting, I think a parent would probably pay $5 or $10.
I
Clean
pay
up.
$5 for my
Understand.
nephew for a balloon. If the clown was like doo 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 and making a thing and
Right there.
asking him and like
Yeah.
being the clown, that's what you're paying for, is the experience. Like you pay for a magician, like you pay for the experience. You're not paying for the actual like balloon.
And then he sets you on his lap and whispers something creepy in your ear that you never forget for years.
Well, no.
You ever
I,
dance with the
I have
devil
a
by the
different
pale
take on
moonlight?
this.
You have a different take?
Yeah, I have a different take on it.
What is old, huh?
Yeah.
I thank you for bringing us back around.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kevin.
I think your perception of time is different at different stages of your life.
For sure.
What I mean by that is when you're 8 years old, a day, a week, the summer is longer
It was the time noise.
than it is when you're 20.
That's true.
So when you're 8 years old or you're 20 years old and you look at somebody who's 15, 20 years older than you,
Sure.
you look at it in the way you perceive time. The days are longer, the weeks are longer, the summer is longer. So you feel like that's so far away.
Yeah.
But when you become an adult, you become 25, you realize that 10 years isn't really that long.
Right.
A summer isn't really that long.
You'll go to Rikers to prove your point. You'll do 10 years standing on your head.
What's Rikers?
I think some of it has to do with what
What's
your purpose
Rikers?
is.
It's a prison.
Right?
What's Rikers?
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
It's from a Chappelle skit.
Oh,
I'll put a link to
Anyway,
it.
all
yeah.
right.
But anyways, like when you're young, right, your purpose is what? To grow up. There's not much purpose.
Yeah.
Just to grow up and learn, right? When you get older, your purpose is to, provide for yourself or provide for your family. You have more purpose in your life, right? You have other people usually depend on
Or
you.
even just in the case of like our generation, just surviving at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Having a home or having a car is in itself an
But then you get
accomplishment
old.
for
You
most
get what we call old, retirement age, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your purpose tends to change or go away. Maybe you don't have a job anymore. Maybe if you have a family, your family's all moved on and they're all grown up, and time again becomes
Or
slow to you
deed.
because you have so much of it.
Yeah.
You know what's something interesting, though? From the time I was young, George Clooney has always been old, and he is still old.
Yeah, that's how it is when somebody was born before you.
Yeah.
Well, it's like if you guys
Your
ever
mom
have
will always
watched
be older
like
than
family
you.
videos, like home recordings from when you were a kid.
yeah.
And like I always do this around Christmas time, and I watch it, and like there's a video of my dad, and he's younger than I am now.
But he seems old.
But I look at him like he's old,
But honestly,
even though I'm older.
Right.
Okay, but I do the same thing.
I did that same thing with my
I'll
mom.
throw my dad under the bus. I look way better than my dad did at my age. Way better.
Didn't he have like not very much hair?
I mean, his hair was thinning. He had a Michael Keaton hair.
Yeah.
It's exactly what it's like. You see
When
Michael
you have
Keaton
no
now.
hair, you just kind of look.
When you're a kid, though,
older.
right? And I think I
But I'm
was.
just saying, I think our generation looks a little
They-
better.
we look younger.
From all the little Debbies with beeswax we've been eating all these years.
Right.
We're
We're preserved.
preserved like mummies.
But even
last
like just the
longer.
perception of somebody at that time to me is like they're older. They're an adult.
I had to pull my kilt down.
Well, I think part of it too, honestly, what has been very interesting to me is when you view pictures of old people when they were young, like back in the 40s, back in the
Yeah, still
50s,
look
back in the
old.
60s, you're seeing the style
the
of
old
that
people
time.
of today, you mean?
Right. But you see, when they were young and they're wearing the styles that they're still wearing today, so you associate those styles with old people. So when you look at those people, they look old. But when they're restyled, like artists will take their hair and change this. They'll keep their face exactly the same, change their hair and put them in different clothes. And they look beautiful. Like they look young. They look fantastic. Yeah.
Someone was doing the Golden Girls.
Yeah.
And they were comparing, like, what's her Blanche, right? I don't remember the actress's name, but comparing her to Jennifer Lopez because they're the same age,
right? And she looks super old.
When the Golden Girls was on, like in Jennifer Lopez, they're the same age.
What is it? A wig, right?
That was her hair.
That was her hair. Yeah.
But they put Jennifer Lopez's hair now on that actress, which looked hideous, but it did make her look younger,
way younger. Yeah. Well, and
like
then
her face totally changed to me.
Yeah, it did.
It was interesting.
And that's why I've always said that hair is really important to anyone because it can age you or it can date you, basically. It can, if you have the same hair as when you were in high school.
I date my
now,
hair.
Heck yes. If you have the same hair as when you were in high school now, which a lot of older people do, you'll see a lot of people, like especially in the Midwest, people will stay with the same hairstyle they had in their early 20s. For the rest of their life, and that's why they look old because they're stuck in that generation.
Real quick segue. It sucks to be a guy in a sense
because you lose your hair.
No, I mean, look, I'm not suffering from that.
Well, no,
I'm saying that you have a limited amount of hairstyles you can do where you don't look like a complete boob. All right, look, I'm not gonna frickin' do a broccoli haircut like a 20-year-old would do right now. I will look ridiculous. I'm not in my 20s. I'm not gonna do that. If that's fashionable, though, what do you mean maybe?
My dad's got broccoli hair. His hair's naturally broccoli.
He's not going to get a perm.
I'm not getting a perm to look like a 20-year-old because it's fashionable. And so part of this, what we're talking about...
I keep telling my dad to just let it grow because it's fashionable now. And he's like, well, okay.
Look, your dad is not going to look like a broccoli-haired kid. He's going to look like a Roman senator.
Yes, and he does. Like. My dad does look like a Roman senator.
If he wore robes, for sure.
Yeah.
But okay, to make my point, though, maybe you can say, yes, a lot of people in the Midwest or a lot of people in general get a hairstyle in their early 20s and then keep it. You've just said as a man... The first thing, if you're lucky enough to still have hair, okay, that's checking the first box, right? Bing, have hair. Number 2, right? You want to have a style that looks good with your appearance, so you may have already found that because if you've attracted a mate, you know that hairstyle works. Ding, 2. Number 3, a hair trend comes along that might, for your build or your age, look completely ridiculous, like having ramen noodle hair, you know? I feel like if I did ramen noodle hair, I would look like an idiot. That's how I feel, because I'm an adult at an age where I feel like if I did that to myself, I would be like Creed on The Office episode where he takes the black ink cartridge and dyes his hair my color so that he could... I'm 25. Right. You know, cool tell beans. Management...
Sometimes guys got to rub the bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, and that is, I think, what could be a jumping off point between where you're considered young and where you're considered old by the standard of people around you.
Well, and
it's old is in the eye of the beholder. That's the point.
The fashion nowadays too has gone to like a 90s style. So whereas I would view girls now that are young and fit and whatever, I can't tell how old they are because they're wearing my mom's clothes that she would have come to pick me up from elementary school.
And I honestly, that's another thing. So I'm old. I'm going to be old for saying this. The resurgence of clothes that my mom used to like reprimand me in.
Yeah, and you don't want to see
when
that
I see
on
like
a young person.
I see like a 22-year-old girl who's in good shape, I think, wearing these clothes. I'm just like, wow. Like, that looks like my mom, and that's messed up. That's just weird to see it. Like,
I feel like I have a hard time.
Even the Jenko's like coming back. Like, Jenko's like, we all used to wear Jenkos. And like, seeing those come back, they just look like raver clothes. Like, I'm just like, I've grown out of it. I wouldn't wear them again if they came back.
Yeah,
I
feel old because
I don't care.
I struggle with wanting to be fashionable because I felt like I kind of have been all of my 20s.
We're old.
I'm old.
I'm not old.
Because I refuse to wear the big jeans that I think are unflattering on every body type, and I used to make fun of my mom for wearing those jeans because they made her ass look huge.
Whoa.
They made her hips look huge. I was
Unbridled
a
opinion.
mean child. And I would
You
say,
told your mom that?
Yes, she
said you have
told.
a
She
huge
told me.
ass and nose.
I didn't say ass. I wasn't allowed to say that word.
That's a good point.
I wasn't allowed to say. I was like, why is your butt
Now
so
you are
big?
free.
Why is your butt so big? Why are your thighs so big?
Free to
Why-
cast
I'm-
ass Persians anywhere you want.
I was very rude and mean. I still am rude and mean, but now I'm an adult, so people don't smack me
Pull
for
your
it.
heels on some of this delicious.
It's delicious. But I struggle with trying to be fashionable now and going out and not being able to buy anything that I think fits my body or looks attractive.
If we think they look ridiculous, and the generation before thought we looked ridiculous.
we looked ridiculous because
And then
we're
that
old.
generation before them looked ridiculous.
We're old now.
But we're just talking about the repeating of history. That's why fashion is cyclical, because what was old becomes new again.
Yeah.
You know, now I feel like it's just like what we talked about with radio in the past. Like everybody talks about radio stations that still say a mix of the 80s, 90s, and now, which encompasses basically 1999
They've changed it.
to 2024. It's a
They've changed it.
24-year
The
period.
80s, 90s,
And today?
2000s
Oh,
to
it's 2000.
today.
But I'm
I don't
just saying,
think the music from the 2000s to today has really changed all
they
that.
just
It hasn't.
updated it though because
Because they take things from the 80s and the 90s and put it into the new music to make it sound
When
like,
you were young,
retro, whatever.
well,
like what
'cause
we
you
do.
said you're old, right? When you were young, I don't think I'm old, but when you were young,
say why you don't think you're old real quick.
because a lot of the things are like, you look at somebody who's younger than you and you're like, well, they wear an outfit I wore when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I think it looks ridiculous now. But there were outfits when I was a kid that kids wore that I thought were ridiculous. That's
For
just
sure.
Yeah.
taste.
For sure.
So that doesn't make you old. I think you're old when you stop doing things. When you stop, as a video game reference, when you stop building your character.
But you don't think that having a perception of things is like we do about fashion, like we're talking about her hair or whatever, is sort of a get off my lawn, old man
Yeah.
sort
I
of
mean,
it's-
view.
That's what
Because
I
we
feel
Can't
it is.
see that way.
Yeah,
I know that you're this way. So
Because I've never really like.
the fact that you're saying that you're young of all of us is the one that I find
And you're
almost
the one
most
that
ridiculous.
is the oldest
You are the
man of
oldest
all of us.
man
You're
of
the one
all of
that
us.
these kids
Yeah.
and their
These
But my
kids and that.
personality was
music
like
and
that when
their
I was
clothes.
young. So I've not changed.
So what
You've
you're saying
always
is you're
been
an
an
old
old
soul.
soul.
I've always been, a little cranky.
That deserves a cheers.
But
Whenever we say the same thing at the same time, we're going to cheers and immediately.
this is the year I should feel old because I turn 40. And
in May,
in a couple months.
You will be an
But I don't
elder.
feel old.
But 40 is old.
I wouldn't go back and be 20 right
40
now if you
sounds
gave me the
old.
opportunity.
I don't feel old either. But I will say this: your body starts to fall apart a little bit. Not
yeah.
like in a way that I mean like you're a broken marionette and you can't do stuff. It's like I noticed one day that when I sit down after doing a bunch of stuff, I go, ugh.
Whoa.
Yeah, there's
think about
physical. There's physical things that
I make
obviously
a
I've
sound and I
aged.
was like, damn, dude, I just made like a sit down in
An
my most
audible
comfy lazy,
sigh,
Yeah.
like,
like an audible sigh from the
Yeah.
exertions that I had just had.
But
And I think that I never used to do that.
I
I've
think
always
the
done
old
that
label I just
since
put
childhood.
on much
You guys are
older
old.
than I am. When I say someone's old, I'm thinking of someone who is like retirement age.
Yeah.
But would we say
70s.
someone in their 80s is old, right?
Yeah.
Because this is what they do for dating now. Because like I was saying earlier, like a woman who is 28 might be seen as like a woman that's unwanted. But now, that's literally like when a woman's like done with her school and ready to begin her career. If she's going to be, say, an MD or an attorney or something. And that may just be the start of her dating life now.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like the whole paradigm has shifted in a way
because
where
women have careers now
well, that's the
instead
whole
of just
point too.
child
I mean, women
rearing,
had careers before,
birthing
but
people.
obviously there's been a change up, obviously since we were younger, to the
Yeah.
positive for that. But and that's great. But what I mean is, then we have to shift our ideologies of how we perceive what is and isn't normal now. Because when things change like that, but you were raised in a time before, I think you're old if you can't adopt your mind into the new understanding.
Yeah.
I understand why these kids want to say the things they're saying, like no cap, for real, my Riz is high and all that. Kind of like secret code, handshake, treehouse stuff.
I mean, we did it too.
Everybody did it.
Everybody
did it with whatever. And my mom would be like, "What? What are you saying?" And I'd be like, "Word, Mom, it's fine. Like, are you down to come over today?"
Word
or
to
what?
your mother.
My mom would be like, "What?"
What?
And I can remember Ben Stiller in Meet the Parents. He's like, "Yo, keep it on the down low." Like he's trying to talk, and it's just awful. And that is a really good example of trying to speak jive to 20-year-olds.
Jive.
You know, young jive. Like
speak jive.
Barbara Billingsley on the airplane.
Yeah.
No, I speak jive.
But I mean, are you old if you're old enough to know what you like?
But I'm just saying, understanding that you don't like or that you don't care about that somebody's doing something and that you might even find it a little ridiculous is a sign of aging. It's a sign of moving on. It's a sign of wisdom. Because you find wisdom in not looking like a fool.
Right.
and I think a lot of 20-year-olds like we were, when we go back and see things that we did,
Or do you find
feel like
wisdom?
you kinda look like a fool.
Or do you find wisdom in not caring that everyone else thinks you look like a fool?
Perhaps, but
because
you have a
once
standard.
you're an
I think your
old
standard's
man
updated as
wearing
you
your
get-
pants up to here,
Well, that's different. That's,
you know, you look like a fool. But that was the thing that you did in the 40s, and so you're just going to continue doing that. But you don't care because you're old, and you're like fine with
Yeah,
it
but it's
at
like-
this point.
Do you want Danny DeVito to wear skinny jeans?
No.
No.
good point, too.
He
No,
should
you
wear what he
don't.
wore when he was young.
Although I do follow this woman, I can't remember her name, but she is like, I follow her ahead of time for when I get old, I guess. She basically tells older women how to dress fashionably without looking
like
old,
yeah.
but she's got beautiful like long silver hair, and she's got a great figure, like she's, you know, fit and everything for an older woman, and she wears just like very like business casual looking stylish things with heels and pairs her bags and like wears these different things, but she looks timeless every time, and I'm like, that's cool.
You've always had
I'm
an
an old
inclining
lady
towards
at
old
heart.
things.
I love,
You've always
I
dated
do.
older men. You've
Yeah.
always been into
Yeah.
older type things. And so maybe
Yeah.
like Kevin, you've just been an older soul.
Yeah.
So somebody who's not identified in that way.
I have
ever,
older
Or
friends.
been identified that way as me. And
Like
so
I have friends in their 60s, you know?
I understand, but okay.
I get along with people like that because they're chill.
But that's not really what I'm speaking to. What I'm speaking to is the fact that in all of this, let's say that you keep your physical appearance up and you keep in shape, right?
Mm-hmm.
Danny DeVito could wear the clothes if he wasn't. Well, I'm
He
just
didn't
saying.
look like Danny DeVito.
I imagine life, honestly, and it sucks that it's this way, but I've seen no other evidence to suggest it's not like a mountain, or like a hill. And you start the hill on one side as a baby, and you work up all the way
Well,
to
yeah,
becoming
and
the
then
best
you get
version.
to 40 and then you're over the hill.
Okay, well, that's what you consider old. Right.
No,
when
that's
you get to the
literally
pinnacle. Hold on,
40
can I
is
make
over
my
the
point?
hill.
Can I just make my point real quick? Without an interruption.
Right, yes, please.
You climb the hill and you get to the point where you better yourself as best you possibly can, and you get to where you perceive that you are at the pinnacle of yourself. Mm-hmm. And after that, all you're trying to do is hold on to that as you tip down and ride the roller coaster to
I
the
don't
bottom
think
of
it
the hill.
has to be that way.
You don't think it does, but there's no evidence to suggest it's not. The old man that pulls his pants up over his belly probably never thought in his 20s that he would look like that. The point is, you get to a certain point where you choose to either give up or you choose comfort over caring about certain things in your life anymore. And there's a point where wisdom and self-respect and maybe even integrity run together there, and you make a decision one way or the other to sort of give up. I'm 80 now, so I'm just going to do what I want.
I agree with that.
You know what I'm
That's
saying?
why I say I'm not old. I haven't
And
given
then
up.
I think when you give up, like you're saying, that's when you're old, because you've given into, I'm not going to take care of myself really. I'm just going to kind of wear what I want and pull these clothes up. I know I look like an elder, and I've been called that by my family, but I'm just going to go with it.
Well, you're not going to learn anything new. You're not going to experience anything new.
I
It's
don't
not even
think
just
that
about
that
looks.
has. I don't think that just because you want to be comfortable means that you can't keep learning new things and bettering yourself as a human.
But that's not what I'm saying. I'm
But
saying there's a certain point where you give
it's-
up about being healthy enough to continue wanting to have a body that's capable of supporting you to do those things. Like we see people and celebrities and they get older and we go, wow, they put on weight, you know, because when they're not working and they're not active and they get retired, you get into this.
Honestly, older people look a little healthier and better when they put on weight. If you see an old
You're
skinny
arguing
guy,
for how
it looks
elder self-
worse.
But take looks out of it, right? Have you ever had to help an older person?
Yes.
With technology?
Yes.
Why?
Have I had to help them?
Why?
What he's asking?
Are they-
have you ever,
are they
The
incapable?
first question is: Have you ever seen or have helped an elder person with technology?
Yes.
Okay. He's saying why.
Because they don't understand.
Okay. Why though? And I
Why?
see where he's going with this.
Because they didn't grow up with it.
No, because they stopped
They did.
learning.
No.
They grew up with the whole inception of it.
That's
No,
the
because
They
whole.
were
I've
alive
helped-
the whole time.
I've helped people, like, for instance,
They
I've
grew
helped
up
my
with the
uncle.
invention of before we were even able to use
Right.
it.
They were
I've helped
around.
my uncle change different settings on his phone because he got a new phone and he didn't really understand. And he's like, I Googled this, but I don't really know the words to Google
But they
what
got-
the problem is.
Because they gave up.
They gave
They were
up.
alive the whole time.
They've
That
been alive. The technology's been there the whole time. I know people in retirement age who are savvy on computer.
yeah.
Okay. There are
Same.
people who are still in their 80s who were editing film in Hollywood on cut who are old and are using a computer today to do it because they know that industry and they know it. And they're just
So,
as good
like,
on a computer.
My grandpa, for instance, he used to teach computer classes like in the 70s and coding. And he was using a computer and doing all of his own like banking and budgeting and all of his, whatever, all of his stuff. He was a math teacher as well. So he was very capable.
But he had dementia.
He started having dementia, and
That's
then
different.
then as he got really frustrated with everything. But that's like a thing. That's not, and that is
Okay,
that
but
getting
like a
older?
person that's not
Is that getting older?
a
Or is
person
that getting
doesn't have a
diseased?
debilitating
That's an
disease.
illness.
Is
that's
that
an
illness or is
Of
that
course it's an
becoming
illness.
old?
It's a
It's an
diagnosis.
illness.
You get diagnosed with dementia. You don't just
Right,
dementia isn't just
but
like something you
dementia
just
doesn't
get.
happen to young people.
Yeah, it does.
Sure, it does.
It does.
Well,
Well,
certainly
early
can.
onset dementia, but
Yeah,
that's in
there's
your
a whole term for
50s. That's like in your 50s. That's not like
I don't think
20-year-old
50
people.
is
It's not old if we're talking about somebody can
And I
look old
consider
and be
50 as old. I consider 50 as old.
because you're not
Because
you're
I'm not 40
far,
yet.
You're far away from 50 still.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of this
I
discussion.
think okay, the answer to the question, how old is old? 20 years above where you are is old.
Yeah, but you ask this question and then say, I identify as an old soul. I identify
do.
with old lady stuff, but I don't see myself as old, but I see 20
I
years
do
ahead
see
of me
myself as old. I do see myself as old. I've always felt like I was aging.
I'm
and
older
old.
than you.
Like,
Do you see me? Do you feel that I'm older than you?
no.
You don't. You feel like we're the same age?
I guess I feel like you're older than me, but you're not old. I don't feel like you are as much older than me as you are.
I see.
And I also feel that way about you. I don't feel like you are as much older than... I feel like you're slightly older than me. But maybe that's
You mean
because
Kevin,
I've
yeah.
always had older friends.
The
I've
you
always
in
been the
this case
youngest
is you,
friend
Kevin.
in my friend group. I've always been... I've also always had like pain and illnesses and like weird stuff that would
Pain and
make
illness
me...
isn't weird. It's just
no, but it
there's
would make
things that
me
happen.
like... I guess like attuned to old
Growing a
people
vestigial
problems.
tail is a weird. That'd be a weird illness.
Yeah, sure.
Do you think that in the near future... Okay, take a step back. The other night, you and I watched a movie called The Creator
Yes.
about...
It was on Hulu. We didn't watch it in the theaters. We watched it on
Yeah, we
Hulu.
did. We watched
You can watch it on
You
Hulu.
Pop a link up. We'll show you. Kevin has not seen it yet.
I have not.
As
It's
of
good.
the recording of this show. I thought it was okay. I hope to like it a little bit more. It was good. It wasn't fantastic for me. A lot of people have raved it 10 out of 10, best movie I've seen all year. Yada 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 yada.
No, but it was decent.
It was decent. The question I have is, and the movie's basically for those who haven't seen it or don't know what it's about. Oh really? I see how it is. She has poured out the remainder of the bottle, and for the last question, that's fine because that keeps us on top.
Yeah.
The movie is about AI based replicants. So they are synthetic humanoids. They're very obviously able. In the movie, they show you the genesis of and then the omega or the alpha and then the omega of these AI. You can see ones that sort of look like robots in the movie, and then there's ones that are like the future ones that kind of look like people like this.
And you can
then
donate your likeness so that they...
you continue on, sort of.
Yeah.
And they imply in the movie, not to give it, it's not a spoiler, but in some way after you're dead, they can, or while you're alive, take your consciousness out and basically put it on a hard drive and slot it into one of these synthetics, and then your mind sort of continues on and
But
can
only
exist.
for a short period.
No. Like if that particular instance was only because that person had been dead several hours. So a
Oh,
person,
I see.
So they were able to, of course, get that woman's brain in the movie off completely and get it onto the android where it could live. So then it just I imagine regurgitates cells or whatever. That is the point of the question, and the point is, or the question is, and the point of me talking about all of this is, completely, and of course, exactly where I'm going to take a question like this. If we got to the point where you could get a synthetic that was an AI, kind of like the ones in the movie where they would make it so they didn't have the hole in the neck where you would see it. Like they made more like people, but there's an identifiable sign, like some type of marking on their wrist or something that lets you know that they're synthetic. Would you use one for sexual purposes? Would you have sex with a synthetic with an AI personality that you could design the appearance of and the proportions of and then the personality of to create a lover that in a sense could be used at will for your desires?
As far as I understood in that movie, they weren't buying these synthetics. Like the synthetics were just like the next evolution, like stage of humanity.
Well, not. I'm saying outside the world of the movie, in our own practical world today, because there's other things besides the movie. I'm just using the movie as a jumping off point.
Would I buy a sex bot? No. If it was like that,
it's not a sex bot.
It would be a sex bot. Today. If you could buy
completely
the
understand
bot,
what you're saying.
If you could buy the android, the robot, if you could buy this thing and program it
in the future, people will be having sex with robots.
To upload the program to make it as it were in your mind.
You told me on the way here that you would.
Yes, but no.
Okay,
so it would if it's on your terms, as you're saying. Like, could I buy the thing and make the thing? And that's not what I want. No. So if it's not on my terms, yes, I would. Yes, because if I could have a robot boyfriend that is not my, I don't own it. If I don't own the robot
let's
boyfriend,
say that
but
you lease this robot.
No, I don't lease it. I'm not going to pay for it.
Else's.
I'm not going to pay for sex.
So your condo complex hires a groundskeeping robot
prostitutes.
that looks kind of like John Cena.
No, sick.
That looks kind of like Iglesias.
Oh.
And he comes over and he goes, "Hi, how are you doing today?" And you react to him as a person, but you see he's an android.
But I don't own him.
Nope.
I don't control him.
And he is done. And you ask him to pleasure you. And he agrees.
I probably wouldn't ask him
to pleasure me.
Well,
they have a choice. They have a free will to decide whether or not they will. But most
it wouldn't be like that. It would be like a real human relationship. It would have to be a human relationship.
Can we hit the reset button like the old Nintendo and flash the screen? Listen, start over. Let's take out how we arrive at the sex with the android and how it comes to be and who owns it and what.
If the android is my boyfriend, yes.
Okay.
Otherwise, no.
So I'm just saying. Let me ask you this, and I know the answer already, but for our audience, they don't, and I think you'd be fine answering the question. What is the difference between using one of those, which is an inanimate object that's not a person, that you can turn on and off, which this would be, and using them to heighten your own experience, but without the complications and messiness of a relationship?
I don't want that.
I'm not saying you can't have a relationship.
Because if it looks like a person and acts like a person and is programmed to interact with me as if it were a person, then I want to have a relationship with that thing as if it were a person. I wouldn't have a relationship with that thing as if it were a tool in my nightstand. So
you would need to have a relationship with the groundskeep. In this case, you would need to then establish some rapport for you and what's his name?
Enrique Iglesias.
Iglesias, but not the singer.
Yes.
Just the likeness of the singer on a groundskeep android. You would date him.
Sure.
Like if you're single in this equation, you would.
If he has.
So this is another complication. You would date a robot.
If he has his own home, if he can provide for himself, like a regular person. If
I think we're just getting her dating requisites, not really her.
If he's owned by another human, then no.
Well, he would. It's a synthetic, so somebody has to own it.
No, the synthetics in the movie weren't owned by anyone.
They were created and owned by someone. That they wanted.
They were created by somebody, and then they were put into
who's paying for the charge.
Okay.
Someone has to own it.
Yeah, that's the point. No, nothing comes from nothing. So this is why I was just trying to say. I was trying to take. You like to do this thing that I call devolve into minutia, where you need to complicate.
The minutia is important.
It is. Details are important, but not always the most important. In this case, I'm trying to get around the how you meet the android, how you came to own it. If you don't own it, does it charge? Just to the point of, would you engage in sexual activity knowingly with an android? Is there a situation where that could be a thing?
If it acted like a real human and
like uncanny valley aside,
there wouldn't. It would be past the point of uncanny valley. It would be
so
past
you would need
the
to
point.
be convinced.
It would be past the point of AI. Like when people take likenesses of real people and make porn videos of them and then like release them on X, like that's uncanny valley. That's weird. You can tell that it's weird. You can tell that it's not right. At that
But this
point,
isn't the privacy of your own home, right? I mean, this is...
Right, but at that point, it's weird. I'm not doing any weird thing.
It's an android that's passed the Turing test?
Yes.
That's what we're saying. The Turing test is the uncanny valley.
Okay.
It's
And
the valley by
they
which
interact
humans...
with you with real emotion, and like they can cry.
But
and
they have
can,
to tell me that they're an android.
They don't have to.
They have a
They
mark.
can have a mark.
So I know.
Yes.
Yeah, you would know.
If I mean now, no. Because I'm married and I have a wife and there's no way I'm going to have sex with a robot.
In between.
But if I'm not that,
In between.
maybe.
Yeah.
Honestly, I totally would.
I'm just saying, if it literally is like...
I don't own a sex robot.
I don't own any...
I've never bought a blow-up doll.
Me neither.
But the idea of it is just wild. Like you could have this... I fail to see is that even if it had a depth personality, I still would fail to see it as a person, even if it passed a Turing test.
Honestly, though, okay, I think it is a good idea to invest in sex robots only for the wellness of the population. So people are saying that like prostitution is illegal
This is
and it
exactly
should
where
be
my mind was shifting next.
it should be illegal
If
and
you
it's
could have-
bad to take advantage of people. But if you could have a sexual experience that you could pay for
got it.
with an android that's not going to have these feelings because it's programmed to interact with you in that way specifically, then you could pay this being or the owner of this
Right.
robot,
Right.
and you wouldn't be harming anyone with your weird sexual exploits.
And think about it. And you could have a sexual relationship with
and
Jennifer
sterile.
Aniston's likeness,
Right,
maybe.
and it's sterile because you can
Right,
like clean out that
exactly.
thing and like whatever. So there's no risk of spreading sexually transmitted infections or diseases. There's no risk of and there would be probably if you did have a partner, your partner probably wouldn't be angry with you for choosing to have a sexual relationship with a robot
not real.
as opposed to like her best friend.
You would need to be someone.
Or,
you would
you
need to
know.
be with someone that would understand it and through the eyes of a sex toy.
Yeah. And like I watched this documentary about like in Japan how they interviewed a bunch of women on the street asking if your boyfriend or your husband were to hire a sex worker, would you be upset or would you be more upset if he had an affair with somebody that he knew from work? Almost all of them were like, no, yeah, he should just go to the sex worker. I wouldn't be upset. I don't consider that cheating. It's a
interesting
different cultural
dynamic.
thing.
Yeah, that's
Totally different cultural thing. But I could see that being a thing all over if it were an android.
What you're saying about these Japanese women is basically that they are valuing
The relationship.
and not necessarily the sexual act.
Right.
They have divorced the two.
So
you'd
sex
have to
bots.
believe then people have souls and the androids don't.
Right, but
Well,
in
I
that
mean, what is a
movie,
soul?
but
What
in
is
the
a soul?
movie, it did it like kind of blurred that line because
Well-
the like child robot that is in there is like asking about like heaven and what is
They
heaven
want you
and
to
will
believe
I
that
get
they
to go to
cloned it
heaven
from an
and
embryo, and so she built it away so that the android actually grew in size.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, if you have something that a piece of technology that we do not have yet, but that is self-aware, let's say an android, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason you think it's okay to have that be a sex worker is because they're not human. The only sentient thing I could think of the difference would be is we have souls and they do not.
right.
Like think about it from another angle. And I'm just saying this, and this goes hand in hand with what you were saying about sex workers.
Mm-hmm.
But also, if you could have these sort of service robots, I'm not calling them hookers. There is a Cyberpunk 2077 part of me that understands this because this is post-apocalyptic almost. The idea that there is a service worker, an adult or a sex worker that is an android, but you could cut down on so many societal crimes, possibly. And I'm not saying that to normalize pedophilia. I'm not advocating for one way or the other on anything. I'm going to advocate against pedophilia for sure. But what I'm saying is, if you had the ability to have this small AI created, I know that I have to talk about this because I think it asks the question: how far does this go? Your question says they normalize it for sex work, but how far can it go? In ancient Rome, they were a civilized society, and you could have a boy or a young girl in that society. It was part of it. I'm saying, like,
then the fall of Rome happened.
I don't think it would satisfy the need for that criminal.
Say that again?
I don't think it would satisfy the need. It'd be like if we took a serial killer.
But if it has a personality,
and we allowed them to kill androids,
it's
I don't
not
think it would satisfy their
because
hunger.
it's not taking the energy force of the real person.
There's a visceralness to that.
But it's the control, I think.
It's the control.
Yeah, but if it passed the Turing test, right?
Yeah, but
I don't know.
But you know it's not.
I think half of the allure.
You don't think people would fall in love with androids in this situation?
I think normal people would.
What's a normal person? And we're talking. I'm just saying, where do we draw the line, or do we even have the ability to draw the line as people to say what is the use that you can have or create a personal android for yourself, the likeness of which could be a child? And it could be under the auspice of we lost our child, like in that movie. And we want a replicant of our child because we are unable to conceive.
But then they're just having sexual relations with the child.
I'm not saying that they could do it under false pretense. We're human beings, and this is much worse things happen, or things like that happen to real children in our world today.
Yeah.
If they were doing it with replicants, at least we're not using real.
I don't think that it is a substitute for the real thing. I think that people will always gravitate
we don't think in that
towards
way.
A real human relationship versus a relationship with a sex bot, or because people will.
I'm simply
will
positing
find out,
the idea that
how far
does it go?
They'll find out online that they are talking to a bot that is sending them nudes that might be real women nudes.
You're talking about a dating site.
Yes, I'm talking about dating sites. Because people fall in love with bots because they tell them what they want to hear.
Because they want to have a relationship with somebody that's beyond just the physical.
The question or the answer to that would be, would it eliminate some of that? Probably.
Maybe, but also I think for the really sick people, no, because they want to take advantage of something that doesn't want to be taken. They want to take the innocence of something. And if you're a robot, it's not the same thing.
Well, it's not even that.
You're programmed to be okay with whatever the person is wanting to do with you because you are a slave to the whim of the person who is paying for you.
Yeah, but I mean, look at it this way. So take David's example that if you create a sex robot that satisfies whatever weird fantasy someone has, right?
Right.
If we take that and we relate it to something else, right? I love hamburgers. I'm a meat eater. If you gave me a synthetic, like not meat hamburger, and you gave me, and it tastes just like, we'll say it tastes just like it, right? The real thing. But you gave me option to have the real thing or the synthetic thing.
You're going to have the real thing.
The real thing every time.
Yeah. But if you can't have access to the real thing, you'll take the synthetic thing.
That's
so maybe that's what he's getting at.
That's what I'm getting at.
But
I mean, I've had an Impossible Whopper. There are things they shouldn't have
access to now, and they still
Let's say eating the burger, let's say eating the real thing leads you to heart disease, which leads you to an early grave.
Yeah, I probably would. Well, I don't know. I'm doing that now.
Dude, what's the answer really then?
The answer is some people will probably go to the synthetic.
There is a synthetic that gives you the same experience, but you don't get the guilt over it. What is the drawback here?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's the internal programming to me that will always think the real is better.
Well, this has been the argument for vinyl collectors for years, right? In music, vinyl records.
I love vinyl,
which is why we offer.
I don't think it sounds better to my ears either. But being an audio engineer, being an audio, you think it does?
I don't think it does. I think it sounds like crap.
I love vinyl because I love the big artwork.
But you know what the truth is?
I love the big artwork too. I love the visual of it, and I love the tactile feel of it.
We grew up with digital. We grew up with the last and the back end of tapes in the beginning of digital. Really, I mean,
I grew up with vinyl.
Did you have an MP3 player?
No, not until I I was like 17.
Yeah, so you had you're by now.
I had vinyl in the basement at
What
my
I'm
parents'
trying to say
house,
is
and
you've
we had
grown up
cassette tapes, and I still have the cassette
I
tapes.
know that you're going to be contrary about this, but what I'm telling you is that you have grown up most of your life enjoying digital music. So now when you hear vinyl in your adult life, it
Sounds
doesn't sound great
terrible.
because.
But
and
I've
those old
always
mediums-
thought it sounded
too.
terrible. It was always skipping, and it was always
Yeah,
a...
well,
I get the someone liking to sit in a room and put on a vinyl record and have that tactile experience of having.
There's
Sure.
a sound to it for jazz that I think is great.
Okay,
but it
I
does
agree.
not sound better.
I agree.
With a wine and a jazz on a vinyl record, there's nothing better.
It's
and I think old
fancy.
Christmas music sounds
With
great.
This bottle specifically, Yaz. I
Old
just
Sometimes
agree. I just
the
agree.
scratchiness of an old music on
That
vinyl
doesn't
sounds cool.
But just because you like vinyl doesn't mean that you don't enjoy listening to music on other mediums. Like when you're traveling in your modern car and you want to listen to something like, say, on Spotify, where it can just
Yeah.
serve you content endlessly. Like we
Sure.
just had a long drive.
Although I do prefer listening on YouTube music
I
because the
definitely-
sound is louder and it's better in the car.
I think that
Never tried.
I think that as we get older and as we age, our ability, let's say if you never married and you wanted to be single, your ability to attract somebody that you're attracted to starts to get lower and lower. And so if you could purchase a young AI looking person to have a relationship with that also included the sexual relationship as well, I think that you would see senior citizens maybe making less strange decisions and possibly living longer because they're being pushed to be virile. So, they could tell the robot a bunch of prerequisites, like tell me to get off my ass and go out and walk, tell me to go. And they could also, here's more far reaching. You're talking about a digital wife in a sense, but really what it's doing is it could also take some of the work that the caregivers would do in an assisted living situation.
True.
I see a lot
I
of
guess I
far-reaching
could take an
capabilities.
Android husband, especially if you look like Enrique Iglesias.
See what I
He
mean?
can wipe my butt for me when I can't.
And I would take a nice, Kate Beckinsale, Underworld era,
Oh, for sure.
I don't.
or maybe a Sporty Spice.
Unless
Oh,
I
yeah.
was super lonely and I wasn't in the situation that I'm in now, I could never see myself doing it.
Well, you're not in that situation.
That's what I'm saying. So
the
it's
whole
hard
thing.
for me to. But if I was alone, my normal personality is to do nothing with no one.
Right.
So that would probably be the perfect mate for me.
Yeah.
Someone I could just turn off when I'm done with them.
Oh, wow.
I don't mean just, you know what I mean. Communicating, or if I just need alone time, like power down.
I think communicating is how you get that, as it works
Yeah.
out.
Well, I'm doing all right.
Yeah.
So
Married.
would you, so the actual core question though, guys, was would you have sex with the android?
I mean, obviously, that is a yes. If I'm going to have a relationship,
I mean,
or
at
if
least
I
So you
buy
would
an
try.
Android
At least
husband,
once.
So,
or
but,
if
okay,
I
who
meet
would
up
you-
with an Android and Enrique Iglesias Gardner man who actually lives alone and has his own home somehow, then yeah, obviously, I'm going to be
Enrique
doing that.
Iglesias, Kate Beckinsale, who are you picking for your android humper?
I don't have like a celebrity.
By the way,
like
that's
that.
a slang that I am copywriting. And remember, you heard
What
you
did
heard
you
it here
say?
first. Yeah, android humper.
Android humper. Wow,
I
that's
have
hot.
like a celebrity.
Yeah, I wanted to
like
make it
that
sound as
that I would
old as
pick.
possible.
Jennifer Aniston. Oh, you know what? Like, what if you could have just like a group of just?
You could do it. You could make anything
I'll
you
just
want.
have a Shakira.
You could mix them all. Oh, you
I
would
always
have a woman?
thought
You'd have a
Amelia
woman
Clark
one?
was good
I mean,
looking,
why
so I
not
guess
have
maybe
just like a
Amelia
best
Clark.
friend who's hot?
Would you do stuff with the android too? Or you could have the android do stuff if you wanted?
Like if Shakira
what
and
I mean?
Enrique Iglesias are there. then, like,
Experimenting sexually in ways that you wouldn't because you don't want the guilt or you don't want the shame.
I'll make out with an Android
Because
Shakira.
it's not real.
Yeah, to me it would only be like
This has to
not
get-
to sound lame, but I guess it's only a surface level connection with that. Like that's
No, but
the
okay.
whole
In the
point.
movie that we watched, it wasn't surface level connections. These people were making real connections with these people. Like the
Let me give you an
androids were
example.
I don't know if that'd be
raising
possible.
Okay, let me
raising
take- let me
humans
take it
from
one-
birth, and
let's
they
just-
considered them their family.
There's still wine in the glass. Let's take it one step further. Let's
Yeah.
say your wife passes away.
No,
Just
I don't want to consider that.
okay.
We
Slowly
all know
roll
I'm
there.
gonna
I
pass away
like
before she
Kevin's
does.
This
wife.
is what is called hypothetical speech.
I don't love it, and
Well,
I
it-
drink wine, so
What a
I'm not
5-year-old
having
reaction.
a hypothetical.
What a 5-year-old reaction. Anyway, let's say the wife passes away, right?
Okay.
And you decide, for whatever reason, to
Jennifer
have her
Aniston.
consciousness taken and put into a living capsule.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
can then-
romance.
Can you then? imagine her, however she describes herself.
Yeah, romance.
However she describes herself to you. Like, let's say that you have a memory of her and you want her to look exactly like that memory, and you describe that and they build it and you jack that personality in. Let's take it a step further. And this one will hit home for you. Let's say they can remake your mother or your grandfather or my grandmother, and they inject that personality into them, and it's them for all intents and purposes, but you know that their body is synthetic. Would you appreciate hearing them humming the songs that you grew up hearing while they're cooking in the kitchen? Or could you live with it? Would you get used to it? Or is it us plugging ourselves into the Matrix, but in real life?
I wouldn't do that.
How far reaching?
I think it'd be more like the Matrix there, but I think that would be, I don't know. I think it'd be really hard.
Yeah.
Favorite pet is where it starts.
Because like when I watch,
I would bring back my Lacey.
Robotic.
but they're not real.
Pets that never die.
A pet would be different, I
Pets
think.
that never die.
Now, if it's a new pet that never dies, that's a different thing.
Think about that. You could buy the dog of your choice
You know
and it
what?
would
That's
never
a
die.
good idea. A new pet that never dies.
Yeah, because you could just reskin it. You could say,
But-
I'm done having a Lassie. I want a lab.
But I've had
Send it
a
out. They
few
reskin it.
dogs.
I wouldn't, though. I would always have a Lassie.
I've had a few dogs in my
Same.
adult life, and I believe that their short time on Earth is part of the love that they
You
give.
love the holistic thing, and I get that. But
yeah,
what-
it's.
what-
But I
what-
I would
get
love
what
a
you're saying.
Petrie forever.
Like if I could have my mother hug me right now, yeah, I probably would.
Right. And
Even in synthetic
And
form.
it's not just this; it's be her consciousness uploaded, so her reactions and her knowledge
It's funny because
and everything.
it's almost like, I don't know if you guys have seen the show Upload on Amazon.
I haven't.
So basically, when you're about to die, they can take your consciousness,
Kind of the same idea.
and they put you in a synthetic world.
It's like the heads in Futurama, you know.
Yeah.
Like everybody's
It's
just in
you
the
in a
bubble.
synthetic world,
Right.
and then real people work customer service jobs helping them.
Oh.
And it's a cool show. It's a
What
little
is it on?
Amazon. It's
What's it called
Upload.
again? Upload?
All right,
It's a
we'll make
little
note.
cheeky, but it's kind
wanna
of like
watch
what
it.
you're
Put a
describing.
link in this. Put
Yeah,
put
and
it.
it's like that. And what's funny, not to spoil it, but like basically a dead person, right, has a relationship with a living person,
Right.
but their consciousness is alive. So I guess if you could technically upload someone's consciousness, are they really dead?
Well, okay. Well, this is my question. Like you spoke about a soul. Is the soul something intrinsic that we can't touch or feel? Is it a piece of vapor that just gets absorbed into the heavens? Or, and just let me make an example of this real quick. Let's say we take one of our computers here that we use to make the show, and we tear it apart, and we grab the hard drive out of it, and we smash the hard drive with a hammer,
Oh.
and we tear out all the components. Will it tell us anything about what that hard
No.
drive was used for? Will it tell us anything about what was even on it? Can we get the information and the intrinsic design elements that drive was being utilized for in any way? Can we get anything that it was from just staring at its components
No.
that we smashed with a hammer?
No.
Could then, for food for thought, our soul just be our data? The data is what makes a computer what it is. Its data storage and management and interaction is what makes it a computer.
It's
and
not
makes
the
it
energy
powerful.
source.
Well,
Like,
certainly
it's
the
not
energy source is what allows it to be alive. But
Mm-hmm.
when you see a person who's dead, they're off just like a computer's off.
Mm-hmm.
And if you take a person and you cut them open and you open their brain up and you smash their brains all over on the desk, can you tell what their favorite food was or what their favorite wine was or what their predilections were in any which way, one way or the other, by looking at the innards of them? You can't.
No.
So is the soul really the
I don't think
personality, the operating
soul
system,
is
the
the
data?
likes and dislikes of a person.
Yeah,
though.
but
It's more than that,
It's
but
more
it-
than that. It's what makes somebody the way that they are, makes it the way that they speak, the way that they emote. There's a lot that makes us human. And what I'm saying to you is, if the soul is really some capturable piece, could then the computer be the first step in us creating harnessing that artificial intelligence really in the beginning? That's why we are so irritated with computers in a sense, because we're irritated by the fact that they're not as smart as us, because they can't
No.
just do it the way
Well,
we
if you,
want it
if
to
you
do.
went
But
the
they kind of
biblical
are.
route of it, and this isn't
Well,
a
they're getting
religious,
better, but-
religious podcast, but if you went the biblical route of it, right,
Right?
when you're resurrected, right, you have eternal life. It's in a new body.
Yeah. You'd be starting over, yeah.
So, I don't.
So from a religious standpoint,
Yeah.
really, if the soul, let's say the soul is digital, right? Mm-hmm. And there are studies out there that have shown that DNA can be broken down into a 1s and 0 code, a binary code. If you take that code and you're able to somehow figure out how big it needs to be and figure out what exactly you need to grab from a person at some point. You get terminal cancer, you know? I have a good friend that is fighting a battle with brain cancer right now. If that person, and knowing what I know about that person, if they could take their consciousness, because they have young kids, if they could take their consciousness out and put it in an Android and continue living to watch their kids grow up, I don't think that there's a dollar he wouldn't spend.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I'll say this from personal experience. I've sadly have watched a few people in my life die personally. Been there when they passed.
Such as getting old, isn't it?
And it's weird. It's a weird experience if you've never experienced it. The moment that they pass, the moment that they're gone, they almost don't look like themselves anymore. And it's not like the funeral home thing. I'm saying right at that moment.
No, right at that moment, they're gone. They're gone.
There's something that leaves.
It's not just because their eyes are closed.
But something changes.
Yeah,
no, because their spirit, the energy,
whatever
force
they were,
in them leaves their body.
And not to get as super esoteric or granola about it, yes, but maybe what if?
But if you could harness that and put it into something else,
there is something definitely leaves. What if it's not intangible? If it is intangible, like data is. What if it is data?
Yeah.
What if that's all it is?
I would say if the technology was, if I was going to die or someone I loved died, and you were able to harness that and put them into a new body, I would be okay with that.
Let me give you a metaphor real quick. Or maybe it's not a metaphor so much as it's just a descriptive, quick parable. We know that the Stone Age happened. We know that cave people drew on walls.
Yeah.
If we had the ability to go back and film them with our phone, we'd be creating data that is of their goings-on.
Sure.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Which means that all goings-on can be recorded as data in some way, shape, or form. It just because the ability of a device didn't exist at that time doesn't mean that data wasn't being created or that all things aren't just intrinsically 1s and 0s when you break them down.
It'd be weird if it'd be the difference between whether I could harness someone's essence or if we were just so advanced enough that we could program it.
This is such a far-reaching
that's the difference.
That is the difference, honestly, and I think that's what I was struggling with. Is like I would want like a human type of connection, not just to like feel like I'm using a piece of machinery in order to like, I don't know, fulfill my fantasy.
But now all I can think about is
you feel guilty about it because you feel like you would be a bad person if people knew that you created a Kate Beckinsale and humped it on the weekends.
Right.
All I can think of is
sounds terrible.
The end of
That's why I made it sound that way. I want it to sound crass because I want...
Because it does
Because how your grandma would say,
great.
well, he's been over there humping a robot. That's why he doesn't bring a girlfriend at Christmas,
right.
you know?
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that would be a problem, honestly, because it could be a problem if you consider population increase or decrease a problem. Like if we were able to create
that's why I think this technology
likenesses of other people and people were able to create relationships, quote unquote relationships with those robots, then they wouldn't be creating relationships with other humans and they wouldn't be procreating. So if that is the goal, because there's too many people on the earth and we're utilizing too many resources, then great. But if that's not a real thing, like Elon Musk thinks that he needs to have 17 children.
Leia Organa, Admiral Tarkin, the Star Wars movie, those were procedurally generated or CGI generated characters that played likenesses of real people.
Data on Star Trek.
Data on Star Wars.
Star Trek.
Star Wars.
Data on Star Trek.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm talking about Star Wars.
She's switching franchises on
She's switching franchises, but using the word I've been using to describe 1s and 0s the whole time. You're speaking of the character Commander Data on Star Trek, The Next Generation. Okay. Yes, Commander Data was an early android. Now, I don't think that you would have a relationship with a pale-faced white Brent Spinner.
I would not have a relationship with Data, no.
And that is because he looks like Brent Spinner, not Enrique Iglesias, who also might you encounter doing greenskeeping around with androids or normal.
But if Data were a vampire, then maybe I would, because he'd be a lot more intriguing. If we just had those fangs.
So you have a fantasy of being bit by a vampire?
I would love to be a vampire.
No, be a vampire is not what we're talking about.
If you get bit by a vampire and then they like
No, I'm
do
saying,
whatever
do you
they
have
need
some
to
sexual
do,
fantasy about being bit by a
I
vampire?
don't really have a sexual fantasy about being bit by a vampire. I
You
just
just
have
want the
a
longevity
fantasy
of
about
it.
longevity.
Okay, so final question, since you have a sip left.
Yeah.
Would you sign up for both, this poise to both of you, because for me it's 100% yes. If for $250,000, you could secure the storage of your data, of your brain, and your entire life's goings on, your experience.
I don't have
your
that much
skills.
money.
Okay, let's just
So
say.
I guess no.
Okay, I'm just putting an arbitrary number like 250,000 because
I
that's
don't
something
have
that
any money.
Can I just explain this? real quick?
Yes. Nope. I guess
Towards
I can't
the
do
end of the
that.
bottle, this always sort of is why we love this, making of this show, because I forget that she is about 100 pounds lighter than me. At any rate, I've lost my train of thought.
Well, for $250,000.
Oh, you could have your exact moment of death.
Oh dear.
So every experience you have right up to the time of your infarction, you are.
Am I going to have a heart attack? Like you have to assume that it's going to be an infarction?
Before you die. Just
That you get your consciousness absorbed into a stick, and then at such times that the technology is either available for you to be in a body, then it would be then uploaded, and part of your stewardship of your data would be part of what you're paying the money for. Your money would also include a synthetic that would be in your likeness to live in, and then future upgrades would be at the cost of your estate. Would you sign up for that program to take a risk at eternal life if you're going to die anyway? And for me, it's unequivocally yes. I mean, there's just no way that I'm not going to try that, because what do I have to lose?
Yeah, I mean, if it doesn't work, then you just go to wherever you're going to go, and your essence goes to wherever it goes, whether that's heaven or hell or nirvana
Or maybe your essence goes
Valhalla
wherever it goes,
like,
and you never, and it isn't that in the first place.
yeah, and you just die and go to the ground. So I guess, if I had $250,000, yeah. But if I don't,
I wonder,
then
would
I
you
guess...
know? Would you know when you wake up? Like the idea, right, of a film in this capacity is that you die and essentially go black, and then wake up in your 25-year-old self, in perfect health and shape, and get to start anew.
But I wasn't at 25.
But the point is that you have the best version of yourself with all the knowledge that you've had. As a society, would we allow those people to integrate, because now they have an advantage over every other person
Right.
forever?
Right. I think you would be highly stigmatized. I
But
think
would it
like
become-
there
would-
would be like an anti-android or anti...
I don't know about that. I think it would become
Synthetic.
I think actually regular humans would become the subject.
You
And,
think?
yeah, I think they would get subjugated, because here's why.
I think
You-
at first, though, there would be racism against this new race of
I don't
like...
know about that. I think it would be
Yeah.
welcome to have Grandma back, and it would be welcome to have Grandpa back. But what happens is when Grandpa's in his 25-year-old self with all the knowledge he's had over 85 or 90 years, now all the grandpas and all of those robots are super intelligent and super wise and also physically capable.
But
They
they're
take
also
over.
25.
But
But
they
like
take
you
over.
wouldn't want your grandpa back at 25 because
But
you didn't know
I'm
him
saying,
then.
I think they take over sort of everything. Like it starts with doing like
So
chores
just
and
be a
stuff.
Nancy Pelosi type situation where it's just like a bunch of Nancy Pelosi's everywhere. Like they're
No,
so
what do you mean
old and they're
Nancy
just
Pelosi?
running the country. Like
No, I just mean that. I mean that
She's
they're not
so
old. But
old.
they're not old. They're
She's
not
so
old. They're
old.
not old. In this situation, what they are is they're the wisdom of people from before. And if you think about that, they've seen life already, and they've got a new lease on life, so they're going to start it over. We might see. At first, it might be utopic, but I think that what you would have is you would have people making decisions knowing where it ends. You know what I mean? And it eventually, human beings as we are, as would be born as babies, might just be harvested to keep the rest
Yeah.
of the people going, which is a real post-apocalyptic view. But
wait. The humans would be harvested?
humans end up being subjugated by the AI, because the AI ends up being the all-learning
yeah, the
intelligence.
Brave New World.
What would they
We're-
harvest them for? I don't
It's the
understand.
same
that.
reason that vampires put humans in subjugated parallels to this, because vampires need to feed on humans, but also they're eternal, so they're stronger. They subjugate the humans because they have intelligence. Usually in movies they have wealth, and they have, of course, their strength. And this is what AI would have. It would be a robot or a synthetic. It would
And
have
they'd
the
be able
intelligence
to
and the
be
wisdom.
out in the open as opposed to vampires who have to hide in the night. And
Yeah, I
like-
mean, it'd be double trouble. It'd be double trouble. And I think if the person's learning still because it's their consciousness uploaded, I'm not saying every one of these would be nefarious, but people with money can be nefarious, and you're going
or
to
it
get
would
people
be
who are going to
utopic,
gain.
like you said before. Like it could be
At first, because there'll be guidelines on it. But what'll happen is the people who are in these consciousness, these bodies, have all their wisdom, and I just think it's a Lex Luthor situation, and eventually they're going to work together, knowing that the humans eventually will turn on them, going, we got to deactivate these. These people are never going to die, and
Yeah.
they're helping to make laws and make changes and make
Right.
rules we're not going to be around for.
Right.
And maybe someone says, well, maybe we need to limit the amount of how many people are allowed to convert into this.
Well, it would end up being an
Existence.
elitist thing because you have to have a certain amount of money. Like you said, $250,000. There are a lot of people who will never have $250,000. So it'll
could
be
get it.
the poor
Yeah.
against
That is
the 10%.
So that is why I'm saying at the end of your life, you would liquidate your house and estate instead of giving away to maybe some unwanted kid.
But for
unwanting
people
kids.
like me who don't have an estate,
Right, no,
who
no.
live in an apartment,
because you're not old yet.
Okay,
So-
but like, let's consider like my parents. They had a home at age.
What is the point? I'm just asking.
24.
The money really is arbitrary here.
It's not.
It
It
is.
is. It is everything. Because
Would you
if
pay that amount to do it?
If
Yes
I
or
had
no?
that amount, yes.
It's
But if
just
I
a-
didn't, then no, I would
I
just
don't want you to
die
get hung
like a
up on the
normal
detail
human.
of the money. You're getting
no,
hung up
I'm
on the-
getting hung up on it because this
This is
is
the
what
minutia.
this is what separates everyone, and this is what causes the problem because you're separating the 10% from the rest, the 90%, and then the 90% is the people that
Lower the
cause
price
an
then, 10
uproar
grand.
So it's
against
10 grand.
everybody
So
else.
10 grand. Everybody goes.
10 grand, everybody goes. Yeah, great. But it
I
wouldn't
would
be
not.
10 grand.
What's that?
I would not.
You would
wouldn't.
not.
You'd
You'd
not.
just go.
No, and the reason I say that is my personality, and I'm gonna relate it to things that actually do exist now. I don't play video games that don't have endings.
Oh, I do.
I don't like simulators.
Sims is my
I don't
favorite.
I don't like sandbox games. I don't like games that go on forever.
Oh.
So I feel like my personality, having an ending, makes my life worthwhile.
Okay,
need the-
that's fair.
you need
I
the
need to
period.
know that it ends.
Kevin is a romantic.
Well,
No.
Yes.
if anything, he's just a
Maybe.
human being, I think.
Yeah, I feel like if I lived forever, then the meaning of things wouldn't matter as much. to me.
I think you would get the option to turn yourself off.
It
You
doesn't.
could die whenever you wanted
If
to.
I could choose how long I would live, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But knowing that, like, vampire stories are tragic. Vampires
Oh,
are
for
never
sure.
happy.
No,
'Cause they
they're
live
miserable.
forever.
Right. Yeah.
They live in darkness.
It's almost like if you ever watched The Green Mile and Tom Hanks' character, right? He lives
Yeah.
basically to watch everyone he loves and everything he loves die.
Yeah.
That's his punishment for killing.
Yeah, but in this case,
John
you could
Coffey.
resurrect all those people and continue
Could.
and go on.
But I'm just saying, like,
What's the
I
harm?
feel like,
What's the harm?
yeah, I just feel like I'm all right with it. I'm all right with that. There's an end. I'm okay with it.
I'm mixed on it. I got to be honest. I see it. From
I
that
see your
end.
point. I see the benefit of living.
And I'm
forever.
also giving you that post-apocalyptic ending of what happens
That's
if
the other.
everybody's allowed
that's the
to
other
come
reason,
back.
but I feel like I'm okay. I'm okay when I go.
Guys, that's going to do it for this episode of the Exciting Whites podcast. Let us know what you think in the comments. Would you hump?
Do you want to live forever?
And I'm going to use the word hump.
Hump.
Would you hump an AI or a synthetic or whatever it's called? Would you date one? Would you marry one? Would you allow it to be in your family as your grandmother or your long-lost uncle or whomever you're missing? Let us know in the comments. We're interested in that. When is old? We'd like to hear what everybody thinks. I think.
When will then be now?
When will that be now?
When will then be
Soon.
now?
And then also, of course, tell us your thoughts on the moon and all of our wacky conspiracies. We don't claim to be scientists on any level. We're just wine.
We just know that it's
drinkers.
hollow and that aliens live inside of it.
That is truly not the opinion of the
We
Total
are
Exciting
the
Whites
aliens.
podcast staff and does not reflect the views of everybody involved with the show. And at that, I will say good night to you guys. Thank you so much. And we appreciate you watching
Bye-bye.
the Exciting Whites podcast.